Good evening, everyone. Before we start, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And remember to leave a comment below to let us know where you're watching from and what time it is in your area. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. Dispatch, this is Unit 3. Are you reading me? Something's in here with me. I don't know what it is. You think the locks are there to keep people out. You're wrong. They're there to keep it in. I was 22 when I took the job. The pay was surprisingly good for sitting in a chair all night, and I needed the money for college. The place was the old Northgate Galleria Mall. It had been closed for almost a decade, a massive, dead monument to 80s consumerism. My job was simple. Walk the perimeter twice a night, check the doors, and make sure no squatters or kids had broken in. The rest of the time, I just watched the monitors. The first few weeks were exactly what you'd expect. Boring. The silence was the weirdest part. A building that size, designed for thousands of people, completely empty. The sound of my own breathing felt loud. The only thing that ever really creeped me out were the mannequins. Most of the stores had been cleared out, but a few of the big anchor stores, like JCPenney and Sears, had just left everything. Racks of clothes, dusty displays, and dozens upon dozens of these blank, plastic people. They just stood there in the dark, frozen. I always felt like they were watching me as I passed with my flashlight. The first time it happened, it was subtle. I was doing my 2 a.m. patrol. I walked past the old JCPenney, same as always, but this time something was off. In the main window display, there was a family set. A man, a woman, 2 kids. I could have sworn the father mannequin was always looking straight ahead, but tonight its head was tilted slightly, facing the mother. I told myself I was just tired, seeing things. I even took a picture on my phone to prove to myself I was being crazy. I finished my patrol and went back to the security office, but for the rest of the night, I couldn't shake the feeling. The next night, I went straight to that window. My heart was pounding. I shone my light on the display. The father mannequin's head was tilted even further, and now the mother mannequin's arm, which was always down by her side, was raised slightly, as if to block her face. That's when the fear really started to crawl up my spine. This wasn't my imagination. I checked the entry logs. No one had been in the building. I rewound the camera footage for that section of the mall. The quality was terrible, all grainy and dark, but there was nothing. No one went in or out of the store. The mannequins just moved. It escalated from there. Every night, the scene in the window would change. The father mannequin moved closer to the mother. The child mannequins were turned away, facing the back wall of the display. It was like they were playing out some silent, terrifying drama. I started documenting it, taking pictures every night. The poses became more and more violent. One night, the mother mannequin was on the floor. The father stood over her. I wanted to quit. I really did. But I was broke, and a morbid curiosity had taken hold. I had to see how it ended. Then came the final night. The night I'll never forget. I walked up to the JCPenney, my flashlight shaking in my hand. The scene was different. All the original mannequins, the family, were pushed to the side in a heap. In the center of the display, under the single spotlight that still worked, was a new mannequin. One I had never, ever seen before. It was a female mannequin, lying on its back. Its clothes were torn, but that wasn't the part that made my blood run cold. It was the face. Mannequins are supposed to have those generic, blank features, but this one was detailed. It was sculpted with a terrifying realism, and I recognized it. My stomach dropped into my shoes, and the world went silent. It was my Aunt Carol. She had disappeared 15 years ago. The police never found her. The last place she was ever seen was the Northgate Galleria Mall. I stood there frozen, just staring at this plastic effigy of my dead aunt. And then the slowest, most impossible thing happened. The head of the father mannequin, the one in the heap on the side, it creaked. It turned, inch by agonizing inch, until its blank, featureless face was pointed directly at me. And from somewhere deep inside the hollow store, a single, clear sound echoed through the mall. A man's chuckle. I didn't even scream. I just turned and ran. I left my keys, my wallet, everything. I sprinted out of that mall and never looked back. The police didn't believe me, of course. They said it was a prank, or that I was hallucinating from stress. But I know what I saw. That mall isn't just haunted. It's a tombstone. And whatever is in there, it wanted me to know the truth. It was showing me what happened. I wasn't hired by chance. I was summoned. For about 5 years, I worked security at St. Jude's Regional Hospital. Not the new, state-of-the-art facility they have now, but the old one. It was a sprawling, Gothic-looking building, and my job was to patrol the decommissioned wings while construction was happening on the new site. Most of the old hospital was a ghost town, dark, silent, and smelling of dust and antiseptic. My route took me through the old maternity ward, the surgical wing, and, last on the list, the pediatric ward. I hated the pediatric ward. It was just sad. The little cartoon animals painted on the walls were all faded and peeling. You'd see these tiny beds and cribs, and you just couldn't help but think of the sick kids who stayed there. It had a heavy atmosphere. The sound started on a Tuesday. It was around 3 a.m., the deadest hour of the night. I was walking down the main corridor of the pediatric wing when I heard it. It was so quiet I almost missed it. A steady, rhythmic bouncing. I stopped, holding my breath, and listened. Thump, thump, thump. It sounded like a small rubber ball, the kind you get from a vending machine. It seemed to be coming from the end of the hall, near the old playroom. My job is to investigate. So I did. I walked slowly towards the sound, my footsteps echoing loudly in the silence. The closer I got to the playroom, the clearer the bouncing became. Thump, thump, thump. Right outside the door, I stopped. The sound was coming from just inside. I took a deep breath, pushed the door open, and swept my flashlight across the room. Nothing. The room was empty, save for a few overturned toy bins and a rocking horse covered in a thick layer of dust. The bouncing had stopped the second I opened the door. I scanned every corner. No ball. No kid. Nothing. I chalked it up to the building settling, or maybe a rat knocking something over. But the sound was so specific, so rhythmic. The next night, I heard it again. Same time, same place. Thump, thump, thump. This time, I didn't announce my presence. I crept down the hall. The sound was definitely coming from the playroom again. I got to the door and listened. It was louder this time. I flung the door open. Silence. The room was just as I'd left it. Empty. Now I was getting spooked. This wasn't normal. For a week, it was the same routine. I'd hear the bouncing. I'd investigate. And it would stop as soon as I got close. It was like a game. A game I was not enjoying. But then it changed. The sound started moving. One night, the bouncing wasn't coming from the playroom. It was further down, from one of the patient rooms. The next night, it was from the nurse's station. It was like it was leading me somewhere, deeper into the abandoned wing. Against my better judgment, I have followed. Night after night, the sound of the bouncing ball led me on a tour of the pediatric ward's most forgotten corners. Finally, it led me to a door I'd never noticed before. It was at the very end of a service corridor, marked hydrotherapy. I'd never had a reason to go in there. The bouncing was loud now, clear as day, coming from the other side of that door. Thump, thump, thump. My heart was a drum in my chest. I put my hand on the doorknob. It was cold. I turned it and pushed. The room was huge and tiled, dominated by a large, empty therapy pool in the center. The air was thick and damp. The moment the door opened, the bouncing stopped. I stepped inside, shining my light around. The place was a wreck, but there was no ball. I walked to the edge of the therapy pool and looked down into it. It wasn't completely empty. A few inches of black, stagnant water sat at the bottom. I shone my flashlight into the water, and that's when I saw it. Not a ball, a face. Looking up at me from the water wasn't my reflection. It was a boy, pale, with dark, hollow eyes and soaking wet hair plastered to his forehead. He was smiling this wide, awful smile. In his hand, he held a small, red rubber ball. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed with a fear so absolute it felt like my blood had turned to ice. The boy in the reflection, he slowly opened his hand. The red ball dropped from his grasp and sank into the black water of his world. The moment the ball disappeared, I felt a crushing weight on my shoulders. It felt like giant hands were pushing me down, forcing me to my knees. I tried to scream, but only a choked gasp came out. I looked down at my own feet. They were gone. From the knees down, my legs were transparent, fading into the grimy tile floor. I realized the truth in that horrifying moment. The sound wasn't a ghost. It was a lure, an anchor. The boy hadn't been haunting the ward. He had been trapped there, and night after night, he'd led me on his path, his final steps, by following the sound, by ending up in the same spot where he died. I had taken his place. I don't work at St. Jude's anymore. I can't. I quit the next day. But sometimes, when I'm alone, in the dead of night, I can still hear it. Faintly. Thump, thump, thump. And I know, somewhere in that old, dark hospital, a new security guard is starting his patrol, wondering what that strange sound is. My gig was supposed to be the easiest security job on the planet. I worked for a massive logistics company at their new distribution center. The place was a technological marvel, mostly automated. It was located in the middle of nowhere, literally miles of flat, empty land in every direction. My post was a small, reinforced security booth at the main gate, but my real job was just to watch the 100+ cameras covering every inch of the property. For the first month, it was a cakewalk. I'd watch movies on my laptop, do my hourly virtual check-in, and collect my paycheck. The only camera that ever showed anything interesting was Channel 4. It was aimed at the far northeastern corner of the perimeter fence, where the property met an old, dead patch of woods. One night, I was cycling through the feeds when I noticed something on Channel 4. A shape. It was standing just on the other side of the fence, partially obscured by a tree. It was tall, unnaturally tall and thin. It was too dark, and the camera resolution was too poor to make out any details. It was just a silhouette. I figured it was probably a deer, or maybe some local kid trying to be spooky. I zoomed in, but the image just dissolved into a mess of pixels. I watched it for about 10 minutes. It didn't move, not an inch. Eventually, I got bored and switched to another camera. When I switched back an hour later, it was gone. It happened again a few nights later. Same spot, same tall, thin shape, just standing there, watching. This time, I decided to do my job. I called my supervisor. He told me to log it, but not to engage. Probably just a hunter or a weirdo, he said. The fence is electrified. They can't get in. This went on for 2 weeks. Every other night or so, the figure would be there on Channel 4. Sometimes for minutes, sometimes for hours. It never moved. It just stood. I started calling it the Watcher. Then, one night, it did move. I was watching it on the monitor, same as always. And then it twitched. It wasn't a normal movement. It was like a glitch in a video game. In one frame, it was by the tree. In the very next frame, it was 10 feet to the left, standing in the open. My blood went cold. I rewound the footage. On the recording, there was nothing, just the empty fence line. I switched back to the live feed, and there it was, standing in the new spot. I realized with a jolt of pure terror that whatever this thing was, it only showed up on the live feed. It couldn't be recorded. I felt like I was losing my mind. I was sleep-deprived, paranoid. I started seeing it on other cameras, always in the distance. A flicker in a warehouse aisle. A shadow that moved too fast across the loading bay. But it was always clearest on Channel 4. The last night I ever worked there, I came on shift and immediately checked Channel 4. It was there, waiting. I tried to ignore it, try to focus on my laptop, but I couldn't. I kept glancing at the screen. Around 3:33 a.m., it happened. On the monitor, the figure moved again. Another one of its glitchy, instantaneous jumps. But this time, it was closer to the camera. Close enough that I could almost make out a featureless, pale oval where its face should be. And it was turned, looking directly into the camera lens. Then, it did something that broke my sanity. It slowly raised a long, spindly arm. And it pointed, not at the camera, but past it. It was pointing directly at my security booth, half a mile away. My breath hitched in my throat. I looked at the bank of monitors, and one by one, the lights on the camera feeds began to go out. Channel 72, far loading bay, black. Channel 65, the west corridor, black. Channel 50, 43, 30. The darkness was spreading through the facility on my screens, a wave of blackness coming straight for me. I scrambled for the phone to call 911, my hands shaking too much to dial. I looked at the monitor for Channel 4. The figure was gone. The fence line was empty. Then I looked at Channel 1. The camera pointed directly at the exterior of my booth's door. The feed was black. A small text box appeared in the corner of the screen. Signal lost. I was trapped. The phone line was dead. The panic button did nothing. I huddled under the desk, listening. The scratching stopped. For a long moment, there was only the sound of my own ragged breathing. Then came a soft, polite tapping on the reinforced glass window. I didn't look. I couldn't. I just stayed there, curled into a ball, until the sun came up. My replacement found me like that, catatonic. They said the camera on my door had been ripped clean off its mount. There were deep gouges in the steel door, like something had tried to claw its way through. I never went back. I still don't know what I saw. A glitch in the system? A hallucination? Or something else? Something that lives in the blind spots, in the space between the frames. Something that watches from the dark, and on that night, decided it wanted a closer look. And that's where we have to leave tonight's stories. 3 guards, 3 shifts, 3 encounters with a darkness that lurks just beyond the reach of a flashlight's beam. It makes you wonder what really happens when the world goes to sleep. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more true scary stories every week. Let us know in the comments which of these stories you found the most terrifying. Was it the silent play of the mannequins, the phantom bouncing of a child's ball, or the watcher on the security feed? Stay safe out there, and always check the shadows.